This is a presentation of the Sports Source Digital Network, presented by Hearthside Bank.
Welcome into the Sports Source Digital Network. I'm John Pennington, joined by Ryan Callahan from GoVols247.com. We always use you as the recruiting maestro, the recruiting guru, and I want to talk to you about recruiting. Tennessee football right now, according to your 24/7 rankings, as of Sunday, they were 24th. So when we're taping, they're somewhere in the 20s. Typically, Tennessee has gotten out to a lead, if you will. They're top 10. And then you see the Alabamas and the Georgias pass them by as you get towards signing day. Should people be concerned that you're already passed by at this point?
I don't think so. I think this is kind of more in line with what we saw traditionally. When you say Tennessee traditionally, I think that's more what they've done the last few years in the NIL era.
The Heupel era, yeah.
Yeah, so before that, what we often saw is Tennessee having to do more out-of-state recruiting than a lot of schools, tended to have to wait until the summer to kind of make their run. So when they got off to a good start the last few years, some of that was in-state players committing early. And I think one of the things you're seeing this year, not quite as many highly ranked in-state players that they've been involved with. So there's just not as much to build around maybe. And they did get off to a pretty good start. And they had a decommitment recently from Tyson Bacon, a defensive lineman. They haven't gotten anybody since February.
Four-star kid, right?
Yeah, four-star in the 24/7 Sports Composite. So they had a decommitment early. They've had a class that's it's gotten a little, maybe not stagnated, but they didn't add anybody the last couple months. Yeah. So just kind of a year-to-year thing. I think each class is different, and this class, the guys who are probably going to define what happens with Tennessee's class are a little more out of state. There are a couple in-state guys they're waiting on. And maybe the other thing too, again, that this NIL era, everyone's kind of evolved year to year on what exactly this does for everyone. More kids, I think, are waiting until the summer when official visits happen to make their decisions, because that's when final deals are presented and things like that. Yeah. So I think that's just maybe a little more of a reflection of kind of where the NIL era has gone and the way most players are handling their recruitments these days.
So a sign of the times. Let me ask you this. When you look at Tennessee and the way they spend their NIL dollars, you know, it used to be, let me ask it this way, it used to be that Tennessee had a leg up because they're a good program, and I'm talking not during the dark years, good program, big name, that's an advantage. And there was a thought that NIL, it's not going to let somebody at Miami of Ohio catch up with the Tennessee, all right? But now that we're seeing the amount of money thrown around, and you've got SMU, they're not Miami of Ohio, but they got cash. Texas Tech, there was a time when, Tennessee's always going to win versus Texas Tech. Tennessee's always going to win versus SMU. Is that the way it is now compared to where it was? You still have a delineation, but is it as great as it used to be?
It's not as great as it used to be, but I think we are still seeing that it matters the type of program you are. It matters the pedigree, the tradition of putting guys in the NFL year to year. That stuff still, players don't want to feel like they're sacrificing, most guys anyway, that they're sacrificing something about their college experience and their development to get the money they want. So you still see some situations where certainly the Ohio States of the world, I've mentioned before, they don't always have to be the highest bidder to get a player, because they have this track record of putting guys in the NFL year to year, and people think they're developing players well. So you still need to give the players they want the whole picture. They don't want the money at the expense of their future. They want the money in addition to everything else they think they should be getting.
So you got Ohio State, Georgia, and Alabama traditionally that have kind of been the discount schools. You know, they'll go there for a little less NIL money because they know, I'm going to be coming out of that conveyor belt as a first-round pick.
Right.
If you're Tennessee then, so it seems like the thing's moving. It's like, okay, well, it's hard to recruit because you're down. Now you're not down anymore. You've won 30 games the last 3 years. You've been in the playoffs once. You would have been in the playoffs twice. You've been in a Big Six Bowl, but the New Year's Six Bowl when it would have been a playoff under this setting. And yet I don't see a kick up in terms of the level of prospect. They got a 5-star in Nico a few years ago. That was before the big tournament. They got 5-star in David Sanders this past year and had to pay through the nose to get him. But it's not, I keep waiting to see, 5-star, another 5-star, more 4s than 3s. I don't see I'm waiting for it to kick in. It doesn't feel like it's kicking in. Am I looking at it wrong, or is it just not there yet?
Well, I get this question kind of a lot from Tennessee fans, as you might imagine, thinking, okay, we made the college football playoff or a couple years ago. We were in the playoff discussion, made it to 10 wins. Where's the immediate results?
Right.
And I think people have to remember, you're dealing with kids who don't pay attention as much as you do. And so
that's my question. Does that even matter?
So it matters, but I think the thing is the overall perception of the program has to change, and that just takes time. And so right now they're a team that made one college football playoff and went out in their first round game. That doesn't change significantly. I think players now see Tennessee as, I still hear up and coming from a lot of prospects. I don't hear top five, elite. You know, they don't still see them at the same level of a Georgia or Ohio State yet. So you've got to continue to get there, and you've got to continue to put guys in the NFL draft. And that's another thing. The other thing I point to all the time, it's not just putting guys in the draft. You need some household names in the NFL. Yeah. They had Peyton Manning and Jason Witten for years to point to. Eric Berry.
Yeah, positions that stand out. Yeah. It's not going to be a big help either. Trey Smith and Darnell Wright are great because those are linemen.
Yeah.
Then people just don't talk about linemen the way they would.
Well,
you know, if Dylan Sampson somehow became the next Emmitt Smith.
Right.
That's something to hang your hat on.
Yes.
If any of your receivers who've gone into the pros suddenly turn it around and look spectacular, that's going to get eyeballs.
So that's the thing. Sometimes these guys are going on visits these days and still hearing, you know, Peyton Manning went to Tennessee and stuff like that. Like they're learning things about Tennessee. But part of the problem is you don't have current stars that they know off the top of their head went to Tennessee. Alvin Kamara is kind of the best you've had the last several years. So you need more of those types of guys. It's not just putting guys in the draft. It's putting guys in the NFL that, again, players who don't pay a lot of attention to that thing will immediately know, hey, that guy went to Tennessee.
Okay, so we've talked about winning as a part of it. Overall reputation over a longer period of time is a part of it. NIL and the amount you spend is part of it. Putting guys in the pros is part of it. Having good household names is part of it. Let me ask you another part of it. How good is this staff at recruiting? Because, I mean, there are guys who could take what Tennessee's got right now, I would think, and put you higher. I mean, you keep saying, and that sounded accusatory, but you do say that, you know, they don't see you like Ohio State. They don't see you like Georgia. Okay. And if you were only behind Ohio State and Georgia, I understand that.
Yeah.
You're not behind just Ohio State and Georgia. You're behind about 10 other schools. Tennessee recruits about 10th nationally, which is good. All time, you look at it, and they're about 15th.
Yeah.
That's traditionally where they've been. You know, so should it be better than that when you consider all of those things that you mentioned? Some of them you're still working on. Some of them you had hit. How much of it, though, is, well, you could be doing better. We talked a few months ago in another studio here, another set, about whether or not Heupel should go out and grab recruiters from other markets, from other programs at times. Mm-hmm. Instead, he likes to promote from within, and we said, well, the guy they just promoted, Harbin, is a good recruiter. Mm-hmm. Okay, fine. But how good is this staff? Are they doing what they need to do in terms of, that's the best recruiter in the conference. Come be my receivers coach. That's the best running backs coach. Come be my running backs coach. Do they do that? That's something that you've seen elsewhere. Yeah. You know, even Lane Kiffin, though that class wasn't great and his tenure blew up, he went out and he hired recruiters.
Yeah.
They cheated like dogs, but they got recruiters. Is Heupel and his staff, are they on a level recruiting-wise that they need to be?
I think if you want to pick apart something, I think this is the thing you could ask: is are they pushing the envelope enough in terms of constantly looking to upgrade the staff, constantly looking to innovate, constantly looking to bring in fresh ideas? I think there's probably another level they could get to in terms of the recruiters on the staff. Now, that being said, the development piece is a big part. I mean, you put Omar Norman-Lott in the second round. That's Rodney Garner gets a huge credit for that. Garner probably not recruiting at the same level he did at Auburn 10 years ago, but Rodney Garner's doing a good job, so are you really wanting to change that up?
Right,
so
yeah.
I think some of that, there's some give and take. Glenn Ellerby's another guy a lot of people would point to. Not known as an elite recruiter, but Josh Heupel believes in him enough that he's the highest paid position coach on this staff, I believe, still among the non-coordinators. So it's one of those things you could pick apart, and I think you also and one thing I didn't mention in my previous answer, they still have leveled up in at least one area. They got Faison Brandon committed, the number one player in his class.
That's true. They do great in quarterbacks.
Early.
They do great with quarterbacks.
They got him to commit August of his junior year. So that's an impressive accomplishment. So you're seeing signs of growth in that way, but it's not, to your point, across the board. And so there are some things you could pick apart there. The other big thing is I think we got to remember recruiting overall these days is a product of how you spend your money. Yeah. And so, the whole general manager discussion that's come up, I've mentioned, I don't necessarily.
A few hundred times.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think Tennessee needs a general manager, but you do have to look at how you're spending your money. And these days, the way to win the battles that matter most to you are be the highest bidder. Well, are you being the highest bidder on the right guys? And that's where they've got to reevaluate over time and kind of assess, are we spending the money in the right places? And that includes keeping your own guys sometimes.
Yeah, because you can't just go out and be with the biggest spending team in the country year after year after year. I mean, even in the Houston Chronicle piece that came out last week talking about Texas having a $35 or $40 million roster when revenue sharing kicks in this fall, even that piece said, now, it'll probably go down a little in 2026. Mm-hmm. Okay, these schools don't just throw the maximum every single – you can't. Donors are going to be fatigued. There's got to be, sometimes you're going to have seniors and you need to spend more. With its freshmen, you shouldn't have to spend as money, in theory, as much money. So it does change a little bit. But I'm sure there are people out there saying, well, if most of it boils down to money and we've got the money, why aren't we just drowning everyone in a sea of cash? And it's not that simple.
Yeah,
you got to pick and choose. You've got money. Your money's competitive with everybody else in the country.
Right.
You don't have more than everybody else in the country. You don't have it just to say, oh, you want $10 million? Fine. You want $10 million? Here, fine. And I think there's still a perception after the Nico thing with Spire, and Spire did a good job of promoting the fact that that's what it sounded like it was going to be.
Yep.
I think now that a lot of fans think, where is that?
Yeah, the problem now is I think some people are stuck on the perception of what happened 3 years ago, where Tennessee was kind of off to a fast start in the NIL era. They kind of helped define what a collective even was.
Other schools didn't even have them. Yes,
and so they just got off and running before anybody else figured it out, and they had more money in the early stages because of that. They got a head start on fundraising. Well, now a lot of schools have caught up, and now you're one of about 15 programs that has a bunch of money and can spend roughly the same amount. And then even beyond that, outside those top 15, you probably got a few other schools that are just a few million behind you and can be competitive on any player they truly covet. So it really just, in a lot of cases, comes down to how badly do you want a player, and that's where you have to be willing to walk away sometimes when the amount is crazy because you got to be disciplined. Other times it's, this guy's going to be that good, it doesn't matter, go above and beyond, and you've got to reassess those decisions as time goes on.
Ryan Callahan, always appreciate you coming by. It's easy to throw out the softball and just watch you hit them over the fence. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And for you out there, thanks for watching. And if you like this kind of content, be sure to hit like. That helps other Tennessee fans find the channel. Hit subscribe. You'll know when we put other stuff up. Comment beneath us if you have a comment, or click the notify button and it'll ring your phone or knock on your door whenever we post something. There are about 8,000 things to punch. Punch them all except for the one that does this. Everything else, go ahead and hit it for us. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on the Sports Source Digital Network.